Elvis loved the song. That was when he and Priscilla were having their...
She's the queen of country, beloved for her big heart, big voice, and even bigger hair. But even Dolly Parton has her limits. Known for her kindness and charm, Dolly rarely has a bad word to say about anyone. So when she once described a fellow singer as pure evil, it shocked the entire music world. Who could possibly earn such a chilling label from America's sweetheart? The answer might just surprise you. Dirt poor to the big screen. In a career spanning over 6 decades, Dolly Parton has remained a beacon of kindness, humility, and charm in an industry that often thrives on conflict. She's been praised not only for her voice, songwriting prowess, and business savvy, but also for her ability to keep her head down and her heart open. Dolly once said the secret to her longevity in the spotlight was simply staying level-headed, especially when dealing with other people in the entertainment world. While others waded into messy feuds and public drama, Dolly chose peace. If tension arose, she'd often just remove herself from the situation entirely. But even America's sweetheart has her limits. Despite her trademark diplomacy and gentle nature, one individual managed to pull a reaction out of Dolly Parton so raw, so intense, that she broke her silence. Not only did she respond, but she used the harshest words anyone's ever heard from her lips. Dolly didn't just describe this person as mean, rude, or difficult. She called them pure evil. So who is the person who managed to rattle Dolly Parton to her core? And what exactly did they do to deserve such a chilling label? Keep watching to find out. But to truly understand why this moment was so shocking, you have to understand who Dolly Rebecca Parton really is. Born on January 19, 1946, in a one-room cabin nestled along the banks of the Little Pigeon River in Pittman Center, Tennessee, Dolly was the fourth of 12 children. Her father, Robert Lee Parton Sr., was a sharecropper who later worked his own small tobacco farm, often picking up construction jobs on the side just to keep food on the table. Her mother, Avie Lee Owens Parton, gave birth to 12 children by age 35. Her 10th pregnancy resulting in twins. Despite the poverty that surrounded them, the Parton home was rich with music, storytelling, and faith. Dolly credits her father's business instincts, despite his illiteracy, and her mother's Welsh heritage for shaping her into the woman we know today. Her mother's knowledge of Appalachian ballads and folktales fueled Dolly's early interest in music. Her grandfather, Jake Owens, a Pentecostal preacher, ensured church was a regular part of their lives. And Dolly gave her first public performances in front of congregations before she even turned 6. At 7, she crafted her first homemade guitar. By 8, her uncle had bought her a real one. Music wasn't just a hobby, it was a lifeline. After graduating from Sevier County High School in 1964, Dolly didn't waste a single day chasing her dreams. The very next morning, she boarded a bus to Nashville, determined to make it. She'd already had a taste of the spotlight, performing as a child on local radio and TV stations, including the CA's Walker Show. At just 13, she recorded her first single, Puppy Love, on a small Louisiana label, and even graced the stage at the Grand Ole Opry, where she met Johnny Cash, who encouraged her to stick to her instincts. Those instincts paid off. Dolly initially made her mark as a songwriter, penning hits with her uncle Bill Owens. She wrote for artists like Kitty Wells and Hank Williams Jr. and landed 2 top 10 hits for Bill Phillips. But when she signed with Monument Records in 1965, they pushed her toward bubblegum pop, dismissing her voice as too high-pitched for country. That changed quickly after her song Put It Off Until Tomorrow, sung by Phillips with Dolly on harmony, climbed the charts. Her first country single, Dumb Blonde, cracked the top 25. Something Fishy followed closely behind. Soon after, she dropped her debut album, Hello, I'm Dolly, and the rest is music history. Dolly Parton didn't just survive the industry, she reinvented it. From Jolene to 9 to 5, from her philanthropy to Dollywood, she has stayed beloved across generations. Through it all, she's refused to feed the rumor mill, refused to strike back at critics, and refused to let industry politics pull her down. She is, without question, one of the most respected figures in entertainment, which makes what happened even more shocking. Over the years, Dolly has worked with countless stars, From legends to newcomers, she's dealt with egos, tension, and controversy. But there's one person who crossed a line even Dolly couldn't ignore. And who's that person? Stay tuned to find out. But first, let's turn the spotlight to a love story that has endured and kept Dolly grounded for all these years. Dolly Parton and Carl Thomas Dean. Dolly Parton is many things: a country music icon, a business mogul, a philanthropist, and a national treasure. Known for her powerhouse vocals, infectious charm, and signature rhinestone-studded fashion, she's dazzled audiences for decades. But perhaps one of her most enduring and under-celebrated accomplishments is the love story she quietly nurtured behind the scenes with her husband, Carl Thomas Dean, a man whose name rarely makes headlines, but whose heart has always been center stage in Dolly's world. Their romance begins like a scene out of a Southern fairy tale. The year was 1964. The setting was a laundromat in Nashville, Tennessee, and fate was about to intervene. 18-year-old Dolly had just arrived in the city, carrying big dreams and even bigger talent from her hometown of Sevierville. She wasn't yet a household name, just a girl with a suitcase full of songs and a voice that could melt marble. Enter Carl Dean, 21, passing by in his pickup truck. He spotted her outside the wishy-washy laundromat, and compelled by something he still couldn't explain, stopped his truck and hollered at her. In true Southern fashion, his approach was bold, but Dolly wasn't immediately swayed. Still, she invited him to come visit her the next day while she babysat her nephew. Carl showed up, and then he kept showing up. Dolly later remembered with a twinkle in her voice that he came up every day that week and they sat out on the porch and that she wouldn't even take him in the house. That front porch, humble as it may have been, would become the birthplace of a lifetime of love. Within days, Carl had already introduced her to his parents. Dolly recalled that he knew right the minute he saw her that she was the one he wanted. It was a kind of certainty that some spend a lifetime chasing. No grand gestures, no whirlwind escapades, just two people sharing time and space, quietly growing roots in each other's lives. Their first official date, a trip through the McDonald's drive-thru, and to Dolly it was perfect. She once said Carl only liked to go places where he could be comfortable. That down-to-earth simplicity would become the foundation of their marriage. No Hollywood glitz, no paparazzi parade, just private jokes, real talk, and a love that grew in the quiet spaces between the headlines. Despite pressure from Dolly's management to delay marriage, fearing it might damage her blossoming career, the two followed their hearts. On May 30th, 1966, they eloped to Ringgold, Georgia, dodging the local Tennessee press. Dolly wore a simple white dress sewn by her mother and carried a bouquet of hand-picked flowers. They found a small Baptist church and a pastor willing to marry them that day. Dolly explained that she couldn't get married in a courthouse because she'd never feel married, and so they didn't. That choice, like so many in their lives, was grounded in authenticity rather than spectacle. Later that same month, Carl accompanied Dolly to an industry gala, her first major red carpet. She was receiving a BMI Song of the Year award for Put It Off Until Tomorrow. The night should have been dazzling. But after dinner, Carl turned to her and told her that he wanted her to have everything she wanted, and that he was happy for her, but not to ever ask him to go to another one of those dang things again. He never did. From that point on, Carl supported Dolly's journey from a distance, never seeking the limelight for himself. His devotion was deep, but private, unseen by cameras, but undeniable in every backstage moment of her life. Carl made one rare exception when he appeared on the cover of her 1969 album, My Blue Ridge Mountain Boy, rocking rugged lumberjack vibes that now hold a place in country music nostalgia. After that, he faded back into the background where he was most at home while Dolly's star rose sky high. And then there was Jolene. The 1973 anthem of heartbreak and jealousy remains one of her most iconic hits. But as Dolly later revealed, the real story was far more playful. A local bank teller had developed a harmless crush on Carl. Dolly laughed that he just loved going to the bank because she paid him so much attention, and that it was kind of a running joke between them, although it sounded like a dreadful one. Rather than a cry of romantic fear, Jolene became a cheeky wink to a marriage secure enough to laugh at life's little flirtations. That sense of humor, in fact, is one of their greatest strengths. In a 2022 interview, Dolly shared that they both had a warped sense of humor, and that even if you have a problem, if you have a great sense of humor, you usually have some crazy way of getting out of it. Their laughter has been a salve in hard times, a spark in the mundane, and a bond that outlasts youth and beauty. Yet their relationship hasn't fit into the cookie-cutter image of romantic monogamy. In her book Dolly on Dolly, she confessed to having flirtatious crushes outside of her marriage. She said Carl knew she would always come home and that she wasn't having sexual intercourse with these people. She was just flirting and having fun. She emphasized that their connection was emotional, deep, and fiercely loyal, but not necessarily conventional. She explained that yes, it was an open relationship, but not sexually, and that she would kill him if she thought he was doing that, adding that he would shoot her too. Their love, like Dolly herself, defies easy labels. In 2012, Dolly penned From Here to the Moon and Back, a sweeping love song for the film Joyful Noise. Though sung by her character to another man in the movie, the lyrics were born from her feelings for Carl. Later, she re-recorded it as a duet with Willie Nelson, giving it even more weight as a personal anthem. She said she needed to write a beautiful love song, so she thought she'd write some beautiful song about him. In 2016, Dolly and Carl celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, not with a glitzy bash, but with a vow renewal at their home. Dolly shared that she got all dressed up in the most beautiful gown anyone had ever seen, and dressed that husband of hers up, saying he looked like a handsome dude out of Hollywood. It was, once again, small, private, and deeply sincere. Carl even made a rare public comment, saying that his first thought was that he was going to marry that girl, and his second thought was that she was good-looking, and that was the day his life began. In the years that followed, Dolly remained one of the hardest-working women in show business, while Carl lived happily out of the public eye. Dolly explained that he didn't want to be in the spotlight at all, and that he said he didn't choose this world, he chose her. In an era of overexposure, Carl Dean became a living legend of discretion. A man so elusive, some fans even joked he wasn't real. But he was very real. And so was their love. By 2023, as the couple entered their twilight years, Dolly admitted she was slowing down, partly for Carl. She said that she and her husband were getting older, and that she kind of needed to be with him. Though she hadn't officially retired, she stepped back from full tours, prioritizing time with her lifelong partner. She said she didn't plan to ever retire unless her husband was sick and really needed her, or she was sick, and that she hoped that never happens. Then, in early 2025, Carl Dean passed away at the age of 82 in Nashville. The news was shared in a simple statement from Dolly's publicist. Dolly said that Carl and she spent many wonderful years together, and that words couldn't do justice to the love they shared for over 60 years. She thanked everyone for their prayers and sympathy. He would be laid to rest in a private ceremony, as he would have wanted. There's a quiet kind of forever in the love Dolly and Carl shared, a steadfast presence beneath the spotlight, as unshakable as the Smoky Mountains of her youth. In a world hungry for drama and declarations, theirs was a love rooted in trust, simplicity, and the sacred beauty of staying. And while Carl may have left this world, their story continues, echoing through every note Dolly sings, every lyric she pens, and every quiet moment she spends back on that same front porch where it all began. While a Dolly and Carl's relationship might have been grounded, there was one particular relationship that was so highly controversial it almost tore everything apart. Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton's relationship was so steamy, it had fans and wives sweating. Kenny Rogers collaborated with a parade of talented musicians throughout his decades-long career, but none of his partnerships sent temperatures soaring quite like his musical entanglement with Dolly Parton. The dynamic duo delivered hit after hit, Islands in the Stream, Real Love, and You Can't Make Old Friends, all while giving the public a masterclass in how to keep fans guessing. Were they or weren't they? Officially, the answer was no, but unofficially, the chemistry was said to be so thick you could cut it with a rhinestone-studded knife. From their very first recording session together, sparks were reported to be flying so high they could have powered all of Nashville. Rogers admitted that he and Parton had a flirty rapport that lasted over 3 decades. He told HuffPost that they had flirted with each other for 30 years, which kept the tension and energy high. He also joked that their teasing banter had become part of their shtick, though no one in the audience was convinced it was just acting. Naturally, rumors swirled. Fans speculated, tabloids ran wild, and even close friends had to ask if they ever crossed the line. Their story was said to begin in the early 1980s when Rogers needed a spark for his new track islands in the stream. Dolly, glitter and all, entered the picture. Rogers recalled in a 2013 interview with People that they had met before Islands, but weren't really friends until they started working and touring together. They were friends, yes, but this was no casual see-you-at-the-award show kind of friendship. Dolly described their connection as soulmate territory. She told CMT that Kenny's friendship meant more to her than their hit records, adding that they were kind of soulmates, noting how he was from Texas and she was from Tennessee, and they always sang an old country song to each other as a bond. That wasn't the only tune they shared. Their collaborations over the years reportedly included Love is Strange, Real Love, Something's Burning, and the heart-wrenching Once Again She's All Alone. The musical synergy between them was described as palpable, like butter on a hot skillet. Parton later told Today in 2017 that they laughed at the same jokes, that she would tell jokes and then ask him not to tell people she told them, emphasizing their playful connection. With so much emotional intimacy on display, fans wanted to know whether these two country icons had ever given in to temptation. The answer was no, but Dolly admitted they had thought about it. She explained in the video for their 2013 duet You Can't Make Old Friends that there was something special about their chemistry, calling Kenny one of her different kinds of soulmates, saying that just seeing him made her smile. Still, they always kept their hands and lips to themselves. Dolly told Today that they were almost like brother and sister, and that crossing that line would have been like incest, so they never went there. Rogers was more cheeky about it. He said with a twinkle in his eye that tension was better if you kept it rather than satisfied it, and their electric push and pull became a selling point. The unspoken edge to every performance, red carpet appearance, and TV interview. It didn't hurt that Dolly could throw a zinger. She told People, laughing, that he had been married about 40 times, and she couldn't catch him between wives. Speaking of marriages, Rogers had 5 of them. So with Dolly always hovering close, did any of his ex-wives get jealous? Turns out, not really. His 4th wife, Marianne Gordon, who was married to him during the peak of his and Dolly's collaborations, reportedly had nothing but trust in her man. She shared with Closer Weekly in 2020 that she never felt uncomfortable and knew him well. Gordon acknowledged their tension and teasing, but Kenny always said they would lose what they had if they crossed the line. Still, Gordon wasn't completely blind. She added with a knowing smirk that Dolly might have made a move and that it had entered her mind. She said Dolly always said she thought like a man and that she meant it in a fun way. Fun is one word for it. Dolly once joked that if she and Kenny had ever hooked up, they would still be trying to get out of the hotel room. When Kenny Rogers passed away peacefully at the age of 81 in March 2020, the loss was felt across the music world. But for Dolly, it was personal. She tweeted just hours after the news broke that you never know how much you love somebody until they're gone, that she had so many wonderful years and times with her friend Kenny, and that above all the music and success, she loved him as a wonderful man and true friend. She told him to be safe with God and said she would always love him. It wasn't just a friendship, it was a partnership, a spectacle, and for many the ultimate what-if love story of country music. They didn't need a steamy affair or secret rendezvous to light the world on fire. The love was real. It just didn't look the way most people expected. In the end, Dolly and Kenny were proof that not every connection needs to be romantic. Sometimes the most powerful relationships are the ones that stay just on the edge, where the tension simmers, the friendship endures, and the spark never quite goes out. The one singer Dolly Parton called pure evil. The mentor-mentee relationship has always played a vital role in the world of creativity, business, and entertainment. From ancient scholars learning at the feet of wise philosophers to modern-day apprentices absorbing knowledge from industry greats, the connection between a seasoned guide and a rising star remains timeless. And perhaps no such relationship in country music has been more famously bittersweet than that of Porter Wagoner and Dolly Parton, a dynamic that began in harmony, crescendoed into fame, and ended in heartbreak and lawsuits. It was a tale full of admiration, success, power struggles, and in the end, a hauntingly beautiful farewell. Before Dolly Parton became the solo icon adored across the globe for her voice, songwriting, and larger-than-life persona, she was introduced to the world not alone but hand-in-hand with Wagoner, a man whose showmanship and platform helped catapult her into the national spotlight. Born in 1927, Porter Wagoner wasn't an overnight success either. He scraped and clawed his way into the spotlight, earning a place in country music history with hits like A Satisfied Mind. But his real game-changer was launching The Porter Wagoner Show in 1960, a television spectacle beamed into millions of homes and watched religiously by country fans across America. By 1967, Parton had released her debut album, Hello, I'm Dolly, and although she'd made small waves with singles like Dumb Blonde and Something Fishy, her career needed a boost. Enter Wagoner, who was in need of a new duet partner after Norma Jean's departure from his show. Dolly joined the cast and at first faced a cold reception from loyal viewers, but her sparkle was undeniable, and as she and Wagoner began performing together, the chemistry on stage was electric. Soon fans couldn't get enough. The pair's first duet, The Last Thing on My Mind, charted in the top 10, opening the floodgates to a cascade of successful collaborations. Over the next several years, they recorded 13 studio albums and became one of a country music's most recognizable pairs. Off-stage, however, things weren't always as rosy as the harmonies suggested. Parton's own solo efforts were largely overshadowed by her work with Wagoner, despite her growing ambition and undeniable talent. While her songwriting matured and her voice continued to impress, the world still saw her as one half of a duo. It wasn't until 1970, when Wagoner suggested she cover Mule Skinner Blues, that her solo breakthrough began to materialize. Her performance was dynamic, humorous, and bold, a showcase of her full vocal power complete with playful yodeling. The single hit number 3 ignited a chain reaction of solo success. Coat of Many Colors followed in 1971, then Jolene in 1973. The latter a number 1 smash and a cultural moment that sealed Parton's place in the pantheon of country legends. By then, Parton knew the time had come. Her star had risen too high to remain under someone else's shadow. She had outgrown the mentor who helped shape her career, but leaving wasn't easy. Parton feared Wagoner's reaction. After all, he had nurtured her, believed in her when others didn't, and made her a household name. Still, she had to follow her calling. So, in 1974, she told him she was leaving the show and their partnership. To soften the blow, she gave him something that would endure far longer than any television appearance or duet album. She wrote him, I Will Always Love You. The song was more than a goodbye. It was a love letter to a professional partnership, an acknowledgement of gratitude wrapped in melody and memory. The lyrics bled emotion, nostalgia, sorrow, respect, and a touch of heartbreak. Elvis Presley even wanted to record it, but when his manager demanded half of the publishing rights, Dolly said no. She chose the integrity of her song over the king of rock and roll. That decision turned out to be legendary. The song topped the country charts, and 2 decades later, Whitney Houston's iconic rendition transformed it into a global anthem of love and loss. But even such a graceful farewell couldn't keep the end from turning bitter. Wagoner didn't take the separation well. Rumors swirled. Was he jealous of her success? Did he feel abandoned? Or was it something deeper? Many speculated that his protectiveness of Dolly hinted at romantic feelings. Journalists and friends claimed Wagoner had fallen for her in ways that went beyond music. Porter was really torn up over losing Dolly, one source noted, because he really did love her. And I don't think he'd ever been in love with anyone but himself. Yet Dolly always held the line. There was love, but it wasn't romantic, she said. There was a love of a kind. We never tried to disguise that, because it was as much respect as anything. We knew each other's bad sides, our good sides, our hang-ups, and our weaknesses. Still, working with Wagoner had always been tumultuous. The creative partnership burned hot, and not always in a good way. Their bandmates often heard them fighting, yelling behind hotel room doors, arguing backstage. Porter and I fought like cats and dogs, she once admitted. My husband and I have never fought, and Porter and I did nothing but fight. That fire, perhaps, was part of what made their performances so captivating. It was raw, unpredictable, and real. And when the personal storm ended, the legal thunder rolled in. After Parton left, Wagoner sued her for breach of contract in 1979, demanding millions in damages. The man who once championed her now stood across a courtroom aisle, wounded pride fueling his actions. The case was settled privately, but the crack between them widened into a canyon. Despite the pain, Parton never publicly lashed out. She stayed classy and graceful, always choosing to rise above, and eventually time healed what wounds it could. Before Wagoner's death in 2007, the two made amends. He appeared on stage with her, and they shared a final musical moment. Perhaps it wasn't perfect closure, but it was enough. Do you think Dolly Parton not covering the "I Will Always Love You" song was a great call? Or do you think otherwise? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video that pops up. You won't want to miss it.